Hi everyone, my name is Chilembo and thank you so very much for joining us on Financial Insights. This morning we are at Mulungushi International Conference Center where the Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Sokwani, will be given a half-year review of the national budget. Now I'll be having conversations with different people from the key stakeholders to policymakers just to have more insight on the national budget and what the expectations are. Now do not go anywhere because we'll be bringing you more insights right here on the Financial Insights page. Get to know.
I think as you note from the slide, inflation has been quite challenging. We had managed to bring it down to 9.9, which was the target, I think, 2022. But since then, there have been so many challenges, and it has been rising, as you see on the extreme right of the slide there, the graph. What you note is that inflation has been rising since the beginning of the year, standing at 15.2% last month. We will be having the latest reading, I think this Thursday, tomorrow, which is the end of month, which will also tell us where that is. But the underlying pressures have mainly been, if you will, in three main parts. One is the exchange rate pressure, which has continued to mount. This is happening at a time when supply is also low. So that interplay of demand and supply has resulted in pressures for the exchange rate to depreciate. But as the minister has indicated, going forward, we expect some of those pressures to subside as more copper production comes online and the exports increase as well. Meanwhile, we also have pressures arising from maize imports. This has been compounded by the drought that we are experiencing. This has also affected the electricity supply, which is necessitating importation of some electricity. But to be able to give the economy the opportunity to generate more of its own electricity, tariffs had to be adjusted. So until that time, when we get to that, you expect these pressures to be also being experienced on inflation. So this is why I think the issue of doing something in agriculture becomes extremely important, because the weight of food in the CPI basket, this is the Consumer Price Index basket, is quite high. So anything that goes wrong in that space, you would expect it to be manifested in rising prices. Ordinarily, as the Honourable Minister indicated, this is the time of the year actually would be expecting a relief on food prices. But because of what is happening, this is not happening this time around. So the pressure is on inflation arising from those three main sources.
I'll dwell more on this slide, which shows the revenue performance for the first half of the year. And as earlier indicated, Zeda was below target by 2.5 billion or 4%. And this was driven by weak performance of the mining company tax. As you can see from the numbers, the collection was 2.9 billion, against a target of 8.2 billion. So that's a deficit of 5.2 billion, which is 63.9% below the target. Equally, domestic VAT has also been affected. We collected a gross of 12.9 billion and refunds of 8 billion, with the net collection of 4.9 billion against a target of 6, so thereby recording a deficit of 1 billion, which is 18.3%. We can move the next slide. So the major factors, the major factors underlying the performance have been outlined. The issues to do with mining production have affected the performance of mining company tax. The issues of reduced electricity, you can see the impact being seen now in VAT performance. And also the exchange rate has affected the volumes, particularly on some of the imported products, such as motor vehicles and all that. So this just shows the contribution by different segments. I know the narrative out there is that we are collecting more from the small and medium enterprises, or harassing them, for lack of a better term. But the term, as you can see from the numbers there, the large taxpayers, that's about 245 of them, accounted for 77.7% of what we collected, while 90,425 SMEs accounted for 22.3% during this period, when you compare last year to this year. And the revenue performance by sector, we track the top 5 sectors which contributed 70.8% in 2024 as compared to 74.2% in 2023, thereby indicating increased diversification of the tax base. So prominently mining, you can see last year mining and quarrying at the same period contributed 34.6%, but this year it has reduced to 28.1%. But other sectors such as wholesale and retail have picked up. But most importantly, number 6 there, which is the rest of the sectors. You can see that last year we collected 25.8%. This year we've collected 29.2% from the rest of the sectors. That's an increase of 3.5%. So far, as at 17th July, we have 13,592 registered taxpayers that are on Smart Invoice. And the quantity of invoices that are submitted has been 256,805. And the value of invoices transmitted, this is the value, not the actual taxes, is 12.7 billion that has been reported in terms of transactions on this.
So the manufacturing sector focus, we believe, should be from an agricultural, mining and energy sector perspective. And I would just like to address the fact that you've recognized agriculture as a major input into the value addition sector. We must not ignore the mining sector in terms of supply of copper and energy and supply of the energy sector in terms of giving us the tools to manufacture. The mining sector, Honourable Minister, we have noted of late where the supply of copper, especially to our copper wire companies, has been a challenge, and we'd like some interventions, and I believe there's something that is being done that may even allow for imports from across the border to sustain the supply chain. But in that, Honourable Minister, we also look forward to some recognition when we sign new mining development agreements, and that we allow for our own copper to be traded, and we believe that the metal exchange, which is part of this solution that is being suggested by government, should be accelerated. Honourable Minister, the issue of energy, as has been mentioned by my colleague from Zaki, we need to incentivize this and accelerate it as fast as possible. Without energy, our manufacturing sector will not deliver the growth targets in the next few years for us to achieve our intended goal of 25 to 30% of GDP by 2030. So private sector growth, of course, is something that we look forward to, and we need to find, again, financing is key, and we want this to be encouraged in terms of finding alternative financing models, and something, again, that my brother Paul mentioned too, in terms of maybe ring-fencing the funding that comes from development institutions that are lent through the banking sector through a secondary window that may allow for access to finance for growth. With the taxpayers, I believe ZRA has already mentioned what has happened, but what is interesting to note, and from the report, is that the broadening of taxpayer base is happening. And it is something we must commend your government for having achieved this. On the transport industry, a little more communication, we believe, would be important in what is really the outline, for example, on Lobito and Nakala, so that we can plan in the next 5 years or 10 years in terms of how we will position ourselves as a manufacturing industry. So with those remarks, Honourable Minister, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I believe our intent is to just encourage you to try as much as possible to keep engaging private sector. And the few things that we've mentioned regarding energy supply, financing, the licensing issues and tax incentives, and the issues around the de-dollarization are heard. We must understand, lastly, that we are a cost-push, inflation-based economy rather than demand pull, and there's only so much monetary policy can do to control that. And that's why diversification is so important, and we really need to have serious discussions about that to accelerate it in the short term. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sagar pointed out that we are having challenges as regards policy engagement with government. And even though the Public-Private Dialogue Forum is in place, we do need to have it be, I think, lend a much more sympathetic ear to market considerations. When we comment, we are a microcosm of how the global market will respond to initiatives and policies that are being put in place. And when we do, we try to quantify the risks associated with some of these changes. And really, the danger that they present is that they will feed into impacts such as what Mr. Sagar mentioned around the interest rate. Presently, as an industry, we have one key major operational challenge, which is obviously power. And I think on behalf of not just ourselves, but all productive sectors, we would like to make the request that in the interest of business continuity, both on ZESCO's side and our own and all the other productive sectors, if perhaps duty on imported power, some of which is being arranged through the very innovative Southern African power pool arrangements that some of our members and other players in the country are doing, might benefit from a waiver of import duty on that portion of the power that is imported from within the region. Aside from this, we've also heard the concerns and we will be having discussions with the central bank around the currency regulations. But I think our primary concerns are around, we heard the discussion around local content and the need for a structured framework with a complete ecosystem of financiers and business development service providers, which will enable this opportunity to be taken to its full benefit for the country and the industry, as we are seeing done by people like Barrick, who are running such a program themselves in conjunction with Zanaco. Very worthy work which needs to be replicated and also structured in a conducive and stable legal framework without reinventing the wheel and learning from what our peers in the region and across the world have done. But we do see a risk in that some of the policies and laws that are being promulgated run the risk of reintroducing policy instability. We have laws such as the Minerals Regulation Commission Bill, which is a very worthy bill in terms of increasing compliance and supporting the good works that the ZRA is doing in expanding the tax net in mining. But it has shifted somewhat from the focus of ensuring it covers every functionality under the Ministry of Mines and every functionality that the Commission should cover, such as that of the cadastre. And these omissions will require statutory instruments to patch, if you like, patch them up after this bill is enacted.
We continue to be the mouthpiece of all commercial banks in Zambia, and we're very delighted that we've been given this opportunity to be able to provide our views on what's been presented today. We also continue to push the digital agenda for the country and work very closely with the central bank in ensuring that as a country, we achieve a 24/7 digital economy. So, the points that we're going to present today are obviously coming off what has been given to us as presentations, that being dissemination of the 2023 financial report, half-year budget and economic performance, the 2025 to 2027 MTBB, Green Paper and Outlook, factors which affect inflation and exchange rate, and lastly, de-dollarization consultations and Invest Trust repossession. The first part of this year has truly sped by, and we do highlight certain positives that I would like to outline first, the challenges as well, we'll speak to that, and an outlook as well of the past 6 months. So to start with the positives. Firstly, great milestones have indeed been reached by the debt restructuring process that we've been on as a journey, as a country. And we do applaud all the efforts that have gone towards where we are today. We look forward to full conclusion of this, as this remains a very key attribute in terms of us changing direction as a country from a ratings perspective and also perception of offshore market players. Us as an industry remains very optimistic about this score.
Now joining me is the BAS President, Madam Chibesakunda. Madam, thank you so very much for joining us on Financial Insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mwewa, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Just kind of break it down for us. What does it mean to you as the BAS President, especially when it comes to the minister given the half-year report on the national budget? What does it mean to BAS as an organization?
Thank you, and very important question. So if I had to summarize it, and summarize it very quickly, such sessions are very important for us as an association because it's pretty much a question of, or rather it's an opportunity for us to be part of this platform where the minister is giving a review, giving the highlights, giving the upside, and also being able to talk about some of the key things that remain topical for us as a country. So from a banking perspective, the financial services sector is very, very critical in the wider scheme of things, and especially when you look at the Zambian economy. We, yes, work very close at hand with our regulator, the central bank. However, we are the main facilitators of movement of income, movement of revenue flow, etc. So like today, you not only had a presentation from the minister, you had a presentation from the Commissioner General from the Zambia Revenue Authority, who was talking about how we are faring from an income tax revenue collection perspective, and even just the other tax brackets. He spoke about even what they're working on as an institution, as an authority, to be able to work smarter, to be able to collect more, and to also be able to state what percentage of collection is still out there that they are not currently collecting. The financial services sector plays a key role in that because we are the ones who get to facilitate the movement of all those flows. We also got a presentation today from the central bank governor, and he too was talking about, from an inflation perspective, what are the macros that we're typically looking at as a country, how are we faring. I spoke about inflation. He also spoke about the exchange rate, currency performance, which again is very critical. Financial services sector, we are the ones who as well get to facilitate that. So we are major implementers, we are major partners, and at the end of it all, being also able to use a platform like this to also hear from other key stakeholders. Today we had presentations from the Manufacturer Association of Zambia. We had presentations as well, even from the chambers of commerce. So hearing what is topical for all these critical stakeholders is something that is definitely commendable. And we thank the minister, we thank his ministry for being able to provide this consultative platform where we are all able to air our views and also able to talk about what are the positives, what are the challenges, and how we can all at the end of the day work together in terms of being able to uplift our economy as a country. It's up to all of us, and we all need to do our part. And definitely as an association, it's something that we aim to do.
Yes. So talking about uplifting the country as an association, what are your key take-homes? Like, in a broader perspective of everything that happened at the event today, what are your key take-homes as an organization?
A lot has happened. A lot has been put into implementation. We are starting to see the benefits of it. We are also starting to see what gaps there still are and how best we would all be able to participate in that. But more so as an association and representing the Bankers Association of Zambia, being able to continue to drive the agenda that the central bank has embarked on making the Zambian economy a 24/7 economy from a digital perspective remains front and center. Because once you do that, then it makes facilitation, it makes implementation, it also makes decision making a lot smoother and a lot faster.
Definitely, the minister presented very difficult circumstances we've come through in the first half of the year. For ourselves as mining, we have to talk about the fact that despite this, we are trending up, and our key concern is that we remain on strategy and focus and maintain policy stability so that we can attract capital and grow the sector to support the government's growth goals. If we deviate, we run the risk of capping that growth and making it pedestrian at best. But if we maintain focus, then certainly over time the sky is the limit.
Absolutely. And then maybe in terms of final thoughts, overall, are you confident that with some of the plans that they put in place, and obviously the minister did actually indicate that you would like to engage, are you confident going forward in terms of further engagement with government on some of the key points you brought up?
We certainly will continue to engage because of how important all this is to the core growth of the economy. And it is our hope that we can achieve stability and deliver on the growth that everyone is expecting.
Hello everyone, it's Noel, and I'm here at Mulungushi Conference Center, where I'm about to have a very interesting conversation on the sidelines of what has been a remarkable day for the Ministry of Commerce, where an agreement was signed, a PPP, public-private partnership agreement. And to talk me through this particular agreement is none other than Mr. Noel Nkhoma. Mr. Nkhoma, how are you?
Thank you very much, and happy to be on Financial Insights. And indeed, this is a very important milestone for Zambia. As you know, Chirundu is a very key border, not only to Zambia and Zimbabwe, but also to SADC. So what we have witnessed today is the signing of what you call a PPP concession. The government, which is a public on one side, representing you and me, then the private sector, the concessionaire, the Chirundu Border Concession Consortium. So what that means is to upgrade the border infrastructure. That's number one. Then two, to also introduce or invest in what you call the hardware and the software in terms of infrastructure. Most importantly also is that there's an impact, what you call socio-economic impact.
Correct.
Meaning that they will invest in health, upgrading the current hospital facilities there, probably bringing it to level 1 hospital, and most importantly also the educational side of it. They are upgrading the tertiary school, which is the secondary school, which is in Chirundu. Now, you may want to ask, what does this bring to the table?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What it brings to the table is that if you see the traffic in Chirundu is not as high as it used to be before Kazungula border concession was, before Kazungula bridge was commissioned. The traffic which you are now seeing, the traffic flow improvement which you are seeing in Kazungula is basically the one which used to use Chirundu. Like what the minister said, people, travel time or clearance time in Kazungula is far more quicker than Chirundu. So this is going to ensure that we unlock those rigidities to ensure that the traffic flow is quicker, faster, but improved operating environment in terms of security as well as in terms of the time that you spend to clear. Mind you, it's a one-stop border operation between Zambia and Zimbabwe. So you are going to witness a transformation of a traveling experience in Chirundu.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Nkhoma, for our viewers who don't really understand the structures of PPPs, we obviously already know that the Minister of Finance did talk about Zambia's huge debt. How do PPPs come in place, and will the government be spending so much more money?
No. This is zero cost to government. It's a private party, a private investor who invests money with the promise of a return. What's the promise of a return? What the minister talked about in terms of revenue share. During the period of the concession, government will be able to be entitled to a revenue share. That revenue share is what the Minister of Finance will now be bringing to either invest in infrastructure or to put into supporting the socio-economic impact on the budget side, whether it's health, whether it's education, and so on. So the private sector is the one which takes the risk. So for the risk, you are rewarded. Why are we rewarded? By revenue share. So there's a projection which is made to say within 20 years, you should be able to recover your money. You should be able, mind you, this is $48 million, which is being invested. And you should also be able to make a profit. That is why the private sector is attracted to PPPs. It's a motivation not only to invest, but for a return on their investment by way of profit.
Now, as a PPP council, how important is it for the council to ensure that they use this as a template for other businesses? Because there is a cry for many in the private sector to say, how can they take part? Is there enough information about how some of these deals are structured?
I think what we have, the missing link has been what you call public dissemination of information, either through roadshows and so on. But one thing that you should be pleased, Mura, is that His Excellency the President, Mr. Hakainde Chilembo, has signed the new PPP Act, which has now transformed formerly what used to be called the PPP unit under the Ministry of Finance to the PPP office, the Public-Private Partnership Office.
Which is dedicated.
It's now an autonomous body, just like Zambia Revenue Authority, like the Road Development Agency, like ERB, whatever you like. It's now an authority. So we're now working on operationalizing that act to now make it more what you call engaging, but also further what you call relevance and visibility to the Zambian people, so that they get a benefit. Because if you're a unit under a government department, you can't do much. But now that it's an autonomous body, you'll be able to see more visibility.
Absolutely. Now, from a project management perspective, how long is this project going to take, and how soon can some of the deliverables?
Groundbreaking should be taking place in 6 months. Immediately they start working, and most importantly, we want this to be delivered within 2 years. Yeah,
wonderful.
So that we get the benefit as a group.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it for yourself. Mr. Nkhoma, we will be following up on the progress of these developments, and please do invite us for any more groundbreaking.
There will be also very soon, like what the minister said, there will be the signing of another important border concession. So definitely, you have to be part of that journey.